Am I audible, ma'am? Hello?
Audible.
Yeah, yeah. So this is regarding the incidence of the EGFR mutations in the Indian ethnicity. So similarly, study has been conducted at our center to know the response rates of the TKI for the tumors harboring the EGFR mutation, and we found that 74% of the people has been responded to TKI, and whereas only 5% has been response rate in those with wild type EGFR. So similarly, coming to the ethnicity differences of incidence of other mutations like KRAS, so they are present at around 60% lower frequency in Indian lung adenocarcinoma patients than it has been compared to the Caucasian population. So this is one entity. So the first thing was, what is the difference in the incidence rates of the various mutation rates according to the ethnicity rate? So that is the first point. And the second point, that is cancer pharmacogenomics and what is its implications on the ethnic diversity and drug response. So we all know that there are many enzymes which has been associated with the many chemotherapy drugs. So for example, the patient has been deficient with the DPD enzyme activity, and the patient who has been receiving this 5FU, he may be at increased risk of 5FU related toxicity through impaired drug metabolism. Similarly, patient who express thymidylate synthase overexpression may be at increased risk for the subtherapeutic response, whereas patients with low expression is at an increased risk for the 5FU related toxicity. Similarly, you can see that patients who are receiving 6MP and who are being deficient with TPMP activity, they are at significantly higher risk for the myelosuppression. And similarly, for the irinotecan also, patients who harbor UGT1A1 may be at increased risk for irinotecan related toxicity through impaired glucuronidation. So what I mean to emphasize is there is an clinical implication for this drug mutations or deficiencies or overexpression. So next, coming to the what is its implication on the ethnic diversity? Is the incidence of all these deficiencies or mutation rate is same in all ethnic groups? No. So if we can, if you see this in the white people or in the has been grossly divided into three groups: white people, African American, and East Asian. So if you can see the incidence rates of these deficiencies or mutations is various in various ethnicity. So we cannot generalize the incidence rates among all ethnic groups. So moreover, with the improvement in the advanced technologies, there is a definite need to do the studies based on the ethnicity wise. So one size does not fit for all. So what we can implicate from this one is replicating the single population pharmacogenomic results in ethnically mixed population can be difficult in terms of gene discovery and validation. Even if there is a small but significant difference in the allele frequencies in individual ethnic groups, it may lead to both false positive and false negative results. Therefore, it is crucial to perform both discovery and validation studies in genetically defined homogeneous population subgroups. So what we understood was, besides the unmet need for the additional therapeutic targets in the lung adenocarcinoma patient, it is equally pertinent or equally important to profile known oncogenic somatic alteration across different populations to understand their landscape of variability. So even not only we should identify the additional therapeutic targets, we should also improve the profile of the known alteration problems among various ethnic groups. So with this background, study has been conducted in our own institute by Pratik Chandran sir and other professors, and it has been published in Annals of Oncology in 2017. So today I'm going to present this article. So the article title was Drug-Sensitive FGFR3 Mutations in Lung Adenocarcinoma. So first, let's see what they wanted to do in this study. So what is their materials and methods? So the first thing was they have selected some patients. So I will just let you know what all the patient group they have selected. And second thing was they have pooling of samples has been done from these selected patients, and the target gene capturing has been done, and they have generated the next generation sequencing for these captured genes. And the third thing was what I have done was discovery of the genomic variants or variants of low frequency using computation analysis. And the fourth step was validation of this. If at all they have discovered any new gene, or if at all they discovered any new mutation, so then they wanted to do the validation test for these discovered genes. And the last one was after doing validation, they just want to do whether this mutation which has been discovered, whether this is transforming, that means whether it is able to cause cancer in the cells, either in vitro and in vivo, And if at all it causes the cancer, or if at all it stimulates the proliferation, so whether it can be inhibited with the use of inhibitors in vitro and in vivo. And the last one was, what is the overall survival analysis and correlation in this set of population. So this is in brief regarding what they wanted to do in this study. So three important points was, first thing is discovery of any new gene, if at all. If at all discovered, what is next step is validation of the discovered gene. And if it, and after doing validation, they just want to know whether it is the identified gene or mutated gene can be transforming or can be oncogenic. But if at all it is oncogenic, whether it can be inhibited with the help of drugs. So this is the basic crux of this study. So first, coming to the patients, what all they have selected. FFPE blocks with known EGFR mutation status for 45 consecutive histologically confirmed lung adenocarcinoma patient tumor samples has been selected for the sequencing. And the another set of population was 363 consecutive lung adenocarcinoma patient tumor sample for mass spectroscopy has been collected retrospectively for the validation. So first group of population is for the discovery, and the second group of population what we have selected is for the validation of the results. So coming to the first step, what they have done was these 45 lung adenocarcinoma samples were sequenced using the pooled sequencing approach to capture the low frequency variants, and it has been divided into duplicate pools of different population sizes for the next generation sequencing. And if at all, after that, using some profile, they have identified some unique variants. And after identifying this unique variant, it has been overlapped with the existing database. So either it can be the Indian specific database and the Tata Institute database has been overlapped, and the samples has been filtered for the new variants. And the stringent mutation analysis was carried out to derive the list of significant mutation for further validation. So first they have collected the samples, they have generated some specific genes, and the NGS has been generated. And after that, it has been overlapped, some unique variants has been developed, and they have been overlapped with the existing database, and they have filtered all the known variants, and the specific significant variants which has not been known previously has been analyzed for the further validation. So this is what I mean to say. This is the raw variant list of around 3000. So they have removed the single nucleotide polymorphs, and they have removed the variants with functional significance less than 7 out of 9, not able to cause any oncogenic mutation. So all these things has been removed, and they have derived the list of significant mutations for the further validation. So this is regarding the discovery step. So next, coming to the validation. So for the validation, they have selected around 400 patients and 49 mutation across 23 genes based on the reference and therapeutic significance for genotyping. In an additional set of 363 patients has been selected, and it has been correlated with the discovered sample. So after doing validation, what they have done was, whether if at all if they have discovered some new gene, they want to try it whether it can be oncogenic in the in vitro and in vivo. So for in vitro, the NIH3T3 cell transduced with FGFR3 wild type and mutant construct were used for induction and drug inhibition study. And for in vivo, a cohort of 8 NOD SCID or nude mice has been used and have been subcutaneously injected 5 million cells for the tumor formation in the next 2 to 3 months. And if at all they develop tumor in this population, the inhibitor has been used along with the vehicle control after tumor size is reaching 150 mm. So on the tumor size was measured every alternate day using a Werner caliper during the 14-day period. And the micro PET scan has been carried out at the end of the drug treatment. So this is their basic materials and methods. And see, let's see what has happened in their study. So first, a 45 patients with known EGFR status consecutive adenocarcinoma stage 4 samples has been collected, and they have been it has been pooled into different population, 2 pools of 5 patients each, 2 pools of 10 patients each, and 1 pool of 15 patients. So, and from all these pools, they have extracted the DNA per patient. Here 400 nanogram approximately in each group. They have derived some DNA from each group, and it has been submitted to the Raindance microfluidics platform for generating the NGS. So after generating the NGS, this Raindance, this pooled Raindance libraries has been normalized for sequencing using the Illumina platform, and ultimately have given EGFR variants, multiple variants has been identified by the NGS. Next step here we can see this microfluidics based RNA based microfluid platform plus NGS has generated the high quality data from these 45 patients, and we can see that so the read weights has been in all these pools. They have read some what is the percentage of reads in each pool they have mentioned, and what is the number of known XNPs in each group they have mentioned, and what are the expected EGFR mutations, and what are the EGFR mutations found by the NGS they have seen. So what they have found was they found in gene called as FGFR3, and it has been mutated wild type, and three types of mutation has been noted. The first mutation has been noted in the ligand region is R248C, and second region mutation is also noted in the same region S249C, and the third mutation has been noted in the kinesin binding region, that is intracellular part. This is G691R. So these are the three mutations found in this FGFR1. So a novel FGFR3 mutation has been found in the lung adenocarcinoma patient. This R248C and 249C has been already reported in the existing database, and this G691R is an novel new mutation. So next step was, so the first step is they have discovered a novel gene, and it has been located in the FGFR gene, and the mutation was D691R. So the next coming to the validation of this validation of the mutation in the another set of samples, that is 363 samples. So what they have found was they in these 363 analyzed samples, they found the EGFR incidence rate was, here you can see 13, 12, and some around 26% of the patient has developed EGFR mutation, 13% of the patient developed KRAS, and FGFR3 mutation has been found in 5% of the patients. So out of this 5%, you can see this 249C is has been present in 4%, and this D691R mutation, which is a novel mutation which we have discovered in the 49 patients previously, has been present in 1% of the group. So here you can see the overall incidence of the FGFR3 in 363 sample patients in Indian ethnicity. The incidence rate is 5.5%. So similarly, first coming to the first question. So initially they have seen the landscape of the alterations in the lung adenocarcinoma in Caucasian people. You can see this is in the Caucasian people. So here we also have the data for the Indian population, and we can see the EGFR data corresponds 28% incidence, KRAS was 13, and the FGFR3 was 5.5%. So this is a potentially oncogenic novel FGFR3 mutation, and it can be validated for the further functional assays. So this is the schematic diagram to represent the position of the point mutation identified in the FGFR3 using next generation. So this number represents 16. Total 5.5% of the patient has identified this FGFR3 mutation, of which 4% has then this two mutation, and 1% has then this mutation. So 1% represents out of these 363 samples, 4 patients has this novel G691R mutation. So as I mentioned previously, 249C mutation has been previously described as activating and drug sensitive in the lung squamous cell carcinoma, while the novel FGFR3 691R mutation was predicted to be deleterious based on 7 out of 10 functional prediction tools. So 2 steps has been done. First, they have discovered the novel mutation, and second, they have validated the this mutation in our own group in another set of population. And the third step, whether this mutation is activating, whether it can cause cancer in vitro and in vivo, and whether, if at all it causes cancer, whether it can be inhibited with the inhibitors. So for this one, before going into details, so first I want to describe the mechanism of action of this FGFR inhibitors. So here you can see whenever the FGF, that is fibroblast growth factor, has been bind to the FGFR, so it activates, it causes the ligand binding dependent kinase activation, which leads to the activation of the multiple pathways, that is MAPK pathway, JAK-STAT pathway, and PI3K pathway, of which try to remember this MAPK pathway, so which will cause the further transcription, survival, and the proliferation. So what happens if there is a deregulated fibroblast growth factor signaling? So if there is a mutation in the FGFR gene, either it can be ligand binded or it can be kinase binded. So all this leads to constitutive kinase activation. So this is the terminology I just want to highlight. So the ligand binding dependent kinase activation is a regulated one, whereas the constitutive kinase activation is an deregulated one, and it can cause aberrant transcription regulation leading to cancer tumorigenesis. So the important point to remember is the constitutive kinase activation leads to deregulated transcriptional regulation and further causing tumorigenesis. So for this one, what they have done was the site-directed mutagenesis, that is FGFR3 wild type, FGFR3 mutated, all these three mutated has been inserted into the NIH3T3 clones, and the soft agar colonies has been incubated, and it has been allowed for the formation of the colonies. So here you can see in this diagram. So because of the insertion of this mutated, it leads to the constitutive signaling which I have been mentioning previously. So the ligand binding activation will not cause any tumorigenesis, whereas the constitutive signaling, because of this altered mutation, it will cause the tumorigenesis. So it has been observed here that the soft agar colony formation, here you can see this FGFR3 wild type and all these three mutation. So I'm not going into the numbers, but what I have mentioned about, when compared to the FGFR3 wild type, the number of colonies formed in the mutant type of G69R1 was almost 3 times more. And it has been correlated with the activation of the MAP downstream pathway of the FGFR pathway. So here you can see this is the wild type, this is the G691R, and these are the other mutations. So you can see the further activation of the downstream pathways here in all these things. ERK pathway, AKT pathway, all these mutations pathways has been activated in the mutated samples more than in the wild type. So here we can see first, I just want to highlight two things here. The first one is FGF1. It is an ligand. So when a ligand is bound to the FGFR3, so it will cause activation of the downstream pathways. So here we can see in the wild type, in the presence of FGFN1 ligand, it will cause activation of the downstream pathway. In the absence of the ligand, there is no activation of the pathway. Similarly, in the mutated ones also, in the presence of the ligand, it will cause the activation of the pathway. Even in the absence of the ligand, because of the constitutive kinase activation, it will cause the activation of the downstream pathway. Here you can see, even in the absence of the ligand in all these three mutated samples, there is an dark areas has been noted, representing the activation of the downstream pathways, even in the absence of FGFN1 ligand binding. So one more thing was, so out of total mice, out of 11 mice injected with the FGFR3 wild type, 3 has shown the tumor formation. Out of 12 mice with 249C mutation, 12 has seen the mutation, formation. Whereas in case of G691R, out of 12 mice which has been injected with this mutation, 6 has developed the tumor mutation. So what I want to emphasize in this slide is, so for a normal population, FGFN1 is required for the activation of the downstream pathway. Whereas in case of the mutated sample, even in the absence of the FGF1 ligand, because of the constitutive kinase activation, there is an activation of the downstream pathway leading to the tumor formation. Okay, so this is regarding the so what I mean is that the FGFR mutations are activating and they are transcribing. So next, coming to the next step was, if at all it is activating and if at all it is causing the cancer in the in vitro and in vivo. So are there any inhibitor signals, whether it can be inhibited by the any drugs? So this has been studied both in vitro and in vivo in this study. Here we in this diagram you can see this is wild type, FGF1 is a ligand, and PD173074 is an inhibitor. So for a population with wild type FGFR, if you in the presence of FGF1 and in the absence of inhibitor, there will be activation of the downstream pathway and it will cause tumor. Whereas in case of the mutated samples, so for the patients, even if they have FGF1 or even if they don't have FGF1, in the presence of inhibitor, the activation of the downstream pathway is not there. Whereas in the absence of the inhibitor, even if you can see the minus symbol, so there will be the activation of the downstream pathway. So what I mean to say was, if the inhibitor has been provided to all these population, in the presence of inhibitor, there is an downstream activation of the downstream pathway is not there. In the absence of the inhibitor, there is an activation of the pathway leading to tumor formation. So from this diagram, it is sure that the reason if you provide inhibitor for this FGFR3 signaling, there is an down regulation of the downstream pathway, and it will ultimately causing the cell cycle arrest and tumor death. So similarly, they have conducted this, have seen the role of this inhibition in vivo. So for some tumors, they have vehicle treated, and this is J398. Some inhibitor has been used for treating these tumors. So this is the dark area which represents, red area represents the active tumor. So this is the vehicle treated with the FGFR3, and the same mice has been treated with the inhibitor. Here you can see drastic decrease in the response of the tumor size. So here it is quite hard red indicating the active tumor, and here it is the active tumor is not there, representing the response to the inhibitor. The same can be represented here. So here you can see this graph represents the mutated 249C and the relative tumor size after treating with this post-treatment. So, for example, after around some 10 to 15 days, the tumor size is somewhere around 10. So, if this tumor has been treated with the drug, so look at this graph. So, red one and follow this one. There isn't this much difference in the tumor size, representing that if this drug has been, if this mutation has been addressed with the inhibitor, there is a significant decrease in the tumor size. Similarly, coming to this novel mutation G691R, here also the tumor size without drug is this much, and in the presence of the drug, the tumor size has significantly reduced. So, finally, what I mean to say was, they have found a drug novel mutation, and they have been validated the novel mutation, and they found that it has been transforming, and it is able to cause the oncogenesis, that is tumorigenesis in the tumor, both in vitro and in vivo. And they also found that there is an inhibitor which can decrease the proliferation. So, and been correlated with the other samples. FGFR mutation median survival 17 months, whereas the wild type FGFR, the median survival was 11 months. If you take the wild type of FGFR3, the median survival was 14 months. So what I mean to say was, if the patient has an FGFR3 mutation, there tends to be better survival. That is the point here they want to emphasize. So coming to, so this is in brief regarding the study. So coming to the what all the implications of the study. So among the Caucasian, activating mutations in the FGFR3 have been earlier reported in the bladder carcinoma, lung squamous cell carcinoma, and cervical carcinoma and melanoma also. But they were found to be, these mutations are found to be largely absent in the lung adenocarcinoma, except for one study conducted by the Linsky et al., who reported that non-recurrent FGFR3 mutations of unknown functional significance has been reported in only 3 of the 183 lung adenocarcinoma patients. So this is the only study who has demonstrated the FGFR3 mutations in the Caucasian. So coming to the significance, clinical significance of these FGFR3 mutations in various cancer tumor types. For example, in bladder carcinoma, a systematic review and meta-analysis has been conducted, and they have noted that patients with this FGFR3 mutation, they tend to have better disease-free survival, progression-free survival, and recurrence-free survival. This study demonstrates that these FGFR3 mutations are closely related to low-grade tumors, early stage, and better survival among bladder carcinoma patients. So, if a patient has harbored the FGFR3 mutation, it tends to be low grade, it tends to be early stage, and it tends to have the better survival when compared to other patients. Similarly, the analyzing the effect of FGFR3 mutation on survival of the lung carcinoma patient, it also showed a trend towards better survival for FGFR3 in lung carcinoma compared with the patients with the wild type FGFR and those harboring KRAS mutation, similar to as reported in the bladder and skin carcinoma. As I mentioned earlier, the median survival was 17 months in FGFR3 mutated, whereas it is 14 months in case of the FGFR wild type. So, thus FGFR3 mutation represents an opportunity for the targeted therapy in the lung adenocarcinoma. So, these are the mutations and its association with the clinical outcomes in human cancer. So, here we can see in the bladder carcinoma, patients with FGFR3 mutations do better. Similarly, in the cutaneous melanoma, with FGFR3 mutation, the survival is better. But in the lung carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and the head and neck squamous cell carcinoma, it is mixed results. It is earlier, it is not FGFR3 mutation does not confer a survival benefit in the lung squamous cell and head and neck squamous cell carcinoma. So, indicating that these FGFR3 mutations are differentially associated with the clinical outcome in cancer-specific manner. And they have been associated retrospectively. They have been associated. What is their significance with the age of the patient, significance with the gender, and significance with smoking. And the only significance what we found was it has been more found in patients who are less than 45 years of age, and the p-value of this one is significant with 0.048. The gender and smoking, it is non-significant and no association was there. So the conclusion was it has been associated with the younger age of patient. So FGFR inhibitors, which are currently in clinical testing in tumor types bearing genital alterations in the FGFR genes, it may be extended to evaluate in patients with FGFR3 mutated lung adenocarcinoma. So this study particularly underscores that FGFR family may potentially join the EGFR family as a widespread target for therapeutic intervention in the several human cancer. So these are the various group of drugs has been approved for the FGFR group of family. Out of these, the approved ones are only two, that is erdafitinib and pemigatinib. This erdafitinib is an FGFR3 inhibitor which has been approved in the urothelial carcinoma for the bladder for the post multiple lines of therapy post platinum group of patients. And the pemigatinib has been approved for the FGFR1 inhibitor, and it has been approved in the cholangiocarcinoma. So coming to the summary of this study and my presentation. So first spectrum of actionable alterations in the Indian lung cancer genome has been established, and the incidence rates has been given for the Indian ethnic groups with an EGFR of 25 to 28%, KRAS of 13%, and the FGFR3 specific emphasis on FGFR3 of 5.5%. So novel mutation in the FGFR3 gene are discovered and have been observed to be oncogenic and sensitive to pharmacological inhibition by both in vitro and in vivo assay. So they have found a novel gene, it has been validated, and they found that it has been oncogenic and it causes tumor, and they also found that it can be inhibited by the inhibitors both in vitro and in vivo. And they are found that it has been more frequent in the lung cancer patients and responds better to the standard therapy when compared to the wild type. So the systemic clinical trial should be designed for establishing the targeted therapy agents against the discovered genes for Indian lung adenocarcinoma patients. This is the future perspective of this trial. Thank you.
So, Ravi, nice presentation. So, some take-home message from you.
Well, yes, so we should be more diverse. So, advances in the technology. So we should not extrapolate each and every data from the Western side. So we should do our own study with the Indian ethnicity group of population. So we should look out for the incidence of the new mutation and the drugs which can target these mutations.
That is one. Anything else? Anything else?
Regarding this study, that is what I mean.
So, do you want to comment upon from the beginning for the way we do in Journal Club?
Yes.
For starting from the the question, the patient inclusion, the technology.
Yes.
The finding, the implications. Go ahead.
So the question was, the Indian ethnicity, what is the incidence of this mutation rates? So what are the incidence of the common mutation rates? EGFR, KRAS, and all these mutations. So for that one, I have done one analysis, and in the 45 group of patients in the adenocarcinoma non-EGFR, and in this one they have discovered a new gene, so which is an FGFR3. So after that, it has been validated in the another set of population.
So what was the question for this project?
So what is the incidence rates for the various mutation in the Indian ethnicity group?
Okay. So any comment on the question? Valid question, invalid question, no use? I know you did answer in the last question something about it. A valid question to ask or not to ask? हाँ ना बोलोगे तभी आगे बात करेंगे ना. हाँ.
Yes sir, yes sir.
अच्छा, why? Why?
Whether this study, whether we should undertake this study or not, it all depends on the what is the hypothesis and what is the question back of our mind to do this study.
So you told the back of the mind, the question was to know the mutation numbers, different mutations number in the patient, isn't it? Am I right? That's what you said?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I know for this paper, for this project, this was the only question we had. No doubt about it. No. So now next question I'm asking, is it a valid question? Once you say, then I can have some counter argument and then we can have discussion. I'm not saying, remember,
Yes,
for all the students, we can have a discussion, and with the discussion, we'll learn something, all of us. No one is Mahatma Buddha here who has learned all the truth in the life. Huh? So remember, the quest for truth remains. It is not completed. So if you have opinion, you need to express. Then you will learn why we did it. And actually, why we can talk about it, because I'm co-corresponding author in this paper, and from our lab person is also co-first author. So we will know in and out of this. So we can share with you why happened, what happened. But if you do, only then we can express. Not only that it was good, you can criticize.
So what I understood.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. What I understood from this one was, so as I mentioned in the introduction, so the incidence rates of mutation and the incidence rates of either it can be gene deficiency or enzyme deficiency is different in the different ethnicity group. So, for example, if you consider doing a DPT mutation analysis test for the patient who has been receiving 5FU, so whose incidence in the group of population where the incidence rate is less than 1%. So there I don't allow, I will not do the DPT mutation for those group of patients where the incident rate is less than 1%. So whereas if the incident rate is more than say 20 to 30%, so I will definitely consider the mutation for that patient. Similarly,
give me a second, Ravi. Give me a second.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what is the chance of patient developing cardiac toxicity because of osimertinib?
More than 10%.
More than 10%.
QTC prolongation.
Okay. QTC prolongation. No, but cardiac related injury to the patient. QTC is not the injury to the patient. Yeah. I agree. It is a forebearing that you can have an injury to the patient. What is the chance of patient having injury because of osimertinib, cardiac injury? Or maybe let me put death.
Number not shows.
So less than 1%. That's like safe bet.
Yes, sir.
But FDA has a special label for it. So percentage is one way of looking, but we also need to know the implications of it.
Yes, sir.
What is the implication? So if you say DPD I won't do because it is less than 1%, but think about if we have a less than 1% DPD mutation where, DPD can be homozygous and heterozygous both.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So who are the third year with us? You are there, Ravi. Anyone else? Hemant is there. Who else?
Yes, sir.
Naveen is third year or second year?
Yes, sir. Third year, sir.
Third year. Anyone else? No. Okay. So all three of you, homozygous, if you have DPD mutation, what is the chance of patient dying if you give 5 of you? Go ahead, Ravi. Put some number. 1%, 2%, 10%, 100%.
More than 50%.
More than 50%. Hemant. Go ahead, Hemant. Put some number. Put some number, Hemant.
Sir, it is around 50%.
Around 50%. Naveen?
Yes, sir. More than 60 to 70%, sir.
More than, sir. It is rising. It went from 50% to 70%. So please brief us next time tomorrow. Next time in the meeting, what is the number? Now let me give you a number just for the sake of argument. If it is 100% patient dies because of 5FU, if there is a less than 1% chance of DPD mutation which is homozygous, will we do it or we won't do it?
We'll do it.
Abhi, now you are saying, so percentage alone doesn't decide. What decides? What is the implications? So implication is severe for your patient. you will like to do it. Now coming back to this paper, this was the coming back to the question. So idea percentage alone doesn't decide. But coming back to the question that why did we do this project? So we were discussing that should we have done it or not, and you were saying that percentages. If it is less than 1%, I would not have done it. So now you realize.
We
Do you
should
know what is
respect
the,
others.
do you know what is the percentage of those mutations like NTRK, RET, ROS,
Less than
BRAF? What are those numbers? Do you know any?
1 to 2%, so less 1%.
Okay, so usually it's around 1% or maybe many times less than 1%. Do we do it or we don't do it?
We will do it.
Why do we do it?
If at any for targetable to find any targetable mutation, so that we can target.
How does the patient benefit? That is not the goal. What is the goal?
So whether it will improve the outcomes of the patients in terms of disease-free survival or overall survival benefits.
So does it benefit?
Yes, sir. So by adding the inhibitors.
So what I'm trying to convey to you, Ravi, trying to emphasize, percentage alone is not the basis for deciding what we do.
Okay.
I'll give you another way of looking into it. So how many surgeries we do in thoracic, DMG in TMH? Any numbers you know? Gautam? This we can have our fourth year also talking. How many surgeries we do in in thoracic DMG in TMH? And I'm sticking to percentage, so you get a hang of it. How you decide percentages? It is important to know how we decide percentages and what is the implication. Gautam, nahi ho kya? Achha, Gautam, it looks like every time he is cheating me, simply putting on his phone and doing his work. Achha, chalo, koi baat nahi.
But not just Gautam, anybody can answer. Yeah, this is a question that any first anybody can answer.
Hello.
किसी को भी नहीं पता how many surgeries we are doing.
Prahlad.
Good morning, ma'am.
बोलिए.
Ma'am, approximately 100 per month.
Okay, 100? So you are very generous to thoracic DMG. They will be very happy. Okay, let me. Anyone else? Prahlad.
Sir, 150 to 200 per month.
150 to 200. So I'll give you some number to get a hang of it. So around 80 we do in thoracic, lung, and then we do almost 200 plus in esophagus, and obviously metastatic disease we do some more, 100, 200, 300, something like that. No, but that was not the point. That was not per year. This per year. Sorry, this is not per month.
I want the residents to understand these numbers are per year, 100 per year, not months.
Yeah. Now coming back to the percentage. So what percentage of patients thoracic DMG surgery department might be treating out of, what percentage of patients we register in TMH per year?
Total, sir.
Give some number. Anyone? Prahlad? Gautam?
Approximately 10,000 to 12,000 per year.
So we register almost 50,000 new cancer patients per year.
In lung?
In TMH. No, not I'm talking lung. Lung we register around 2,000. So I'm coming back to percentages. How do you look percentages? Now look for it. That 50,000 patients you register and 300 patients you do surgery. What will be the percentage? Anyone can calculate from the calculator? रवि परसेंटेज बता रहे हो?
Yes, sir.
कितना हो गया?
0.006.
अच्छा. Do you want to say that service is not useful?
No,
because
sir.
you are only benefiting with that services being given to the patient. You are benefiting just that number of percentage of patient. So two things we learned. What? Percentages alone doesn't decide.
Yes.
What kind of benefit we give? That is one. Second, what is your denominator? I took it, what I did for denominator's sake, I took all patients. You can argue, Dr. Kumar, that may not be the best denominator. We need to have denominator thoracic DMG. Someone can argue that that should not be the best denominator. It can be only lung. Then someone can argue that your denominator can be, which are those patients who are fit for, which are stage-wise fit for surgery, and then we did surgery. So your denominator and the percentage and what kind of benefit you give. But think about, the surgery would not have benefiting those patients. We would not have had this discussion at all. Okay, so percentage alone doesn't decide. So again, coming back to the question, so why did we ask this question?
Clinical implications. So whether patients with these mutations do better or with the drug, whether it will benefit with the if at all they have these driver mutations, whether they will benefit with the therapy, directed therapy.
Okay. Okay, so we wanted to know the mutations. Our knowing has these implications. The second part was not the part of this question, but knowing has the implication. Did you put the survival curve in the presentation, Ravi? I missed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So go back. No, this is not that survival curve. There was a mutation positive and mutation negative survival curve.
This one.
Correct. Sorry. So first part of the question was, what is the mutation pattern in our population? The implication is what we know, that it may change the outcome of the patient. But knowing what is the mutation, that is the first step somehow.
Okay.
That decides your further. What else it can help you with when you know those mutations? If you want to make an NGS panel tomorrow, how do you make NGS panel? Well, if you know the mutations in your population, those mutations you can include in the NGS panel. That may help you in making the NGS panel for these, own group of patients. So that may help you in, and that again has the implications. Go on. That was for this year. And you said talk about patient selection. Selection was good.
Yes, sir. So they have only selected the 45 patients of the EGFR mutated patients. So
they didn't select EGFR mutation positive. They selected adenocarcinoma. I wanted you to comment upon knowing in the lung cancer, how did they select adenocarcinoma? Was the IHC done? Second, I wanted to comment you on, was this a biopsy sample or it was surgical sample?
Biopsy sample.
So does that limit this? Does that become a limitation for this project when we do molecular profiling?
Yes, sir. So if it is
in what sense?
Sample is not sufficient.
That is one part. So we don't do it. That's okay. That is, tissue is removed. Anything else? Hemant and others can keep coming in. Naveen, what else is the other limitation?
Most active part of the tumor may not.
Okay. Naveen, anything else? So what happens when you do biopsy, when you do, you have a specimen, you dissect it so much that you know what the way the tumor is made of. But when you do only biopsy, then it is possible that you have missed some part of the tumor, which may or may not represent the same pathology what you're looking for. So that is one second part, you should have seen it. Histopathology part, IHC, I leave it. You should have seen it because that may tell you what kind of profiling you are doing. Next comes the profiling part. So profiling, you said it was done by rain dance technology, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any comment on that? So I know that technology part will be a bit troublesome, but do you think there is a limitation when we do this kind of profiling? Because you have a profiling what? One is you do whole genome, then you have a whole exome, whole transcriptome, then you have a targeted genes, then you have a targeted mutations. These are all NGS.
Yes.
Where this fits into and what should be the criticism. So a journal, this is our article, doesn't mean that we shouldn't criticize it.
Yes.
So where does it fit in And what is the criticism? I told you, this is NGS you told. I gave you all those examples of NGS where it can fit in, and where it fits in, you need to identify and criticize that it is not the best way to do. Hema and Naveen, any comments? So how many genes were there, Ravi, in the rain dance when they did?
So 23, sir, in the 360 sample, 23 genes they have identified this.
No, how many mutations were there? Not identified. How many they were looking for?
Total, out of this 90, they have identified, sir, in the 45 samples. So of this FGFR3, they have identified 3.
No, that is not, I'm asking the result. I will come to the result section. We were asking about technology section. So for all the resident, so here the NGS which was done, it was not a whole genome, it was not a whole exome, it was not a whole transcriptome, it was targeted gene panel. So the advantage is it is easier to do, it is less costly. In fact, there was a collaboration with these guys, and in fact we got it done free at that time. So we again to learn that one can do free also once you collaborate with people. But the limitation is it was not whole genome, exome or transcriptome. That is a limitation. Advantage is it is easier to do. That's the reason we chose it. So again, residents to know what we did it and why we did it, and what makes the limitation, that it limits the discovery. So we did have a discovery, but it limits the discovery. So someone can criticize, as you have not done whole genome, whole transcriptome, or whole exome, you have not looked into far more unknown genes which can happen. Okay, so that is the limitation. So this was a technology which was used. What was the validation platform which was used?
Mass spectrometry.
Very good. So where it was again what? It was again genotyping. So it was for specific mutations. It was for specific genes. How it was done? So it was for specific mutations. So when we do genotyping, you to choose mutations, and that is what you do the profiling for. So again, it was a validation. So what it tells, other mutations which we have not put in, we try to be as extensive as possible. All the mutations which is there in the literature, whatever we could find out. Looks like I've lost.
No, sir.
Okay. So you can hear me? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So so we had those mutations which we did it. So other unknown mutations which we have not put in, we would have lost. We could not get the information for it. So that is again the limitation of that technology. Then coming to the third part, you said the discovery part, correct? That was FGFR3.
Yes, sir.
Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So how did they prove that this mutation is oncogenic? You talked about it. You want to tell in a one line?
So they have been inserted into the NIH CT3 clones and in vivo and in vitro, and then they have incubated for a period of for in vitro they have incubated for a period of 2 weeks, and then they have shown the formation of the colonies. And for in vivo they have injected the mutated cells, and they have observed for the period of 10 to 20 days, and observed the formation of tumor growth.
Very good. So what you have learned, when we discover a gene or a mutation, that does not automatically means that is important. This is for all the students. The learning is that you do various tests to prove that this gene and this mutation is useful for or it is oncogenic or tumor suppressor, whichever way. So you have to do multiple works to prove it. If you want to know more, all the work which can be done beyond this, what was done here, one can read our paper of ARBB2, which was again a discovery in some other set where more work was done. So again, knowing that how we confirm that test is whatever you have discovered is right or not, and that is first part. And second, does it has a bearing in the patient's that it can be oncogenic or not. So that was for discovery part. Now coming to the clinical outcome part, Ravi, a one-line summary for it.
So they have mentioned that whereas in bladder carcinoma and the lung adenocarcinoma, they tend to do better. Low grade.
Okay, no, I'm not asking about that. Is a bit, too much of subgroup analysis. So you need to not only say that, you need to same time criticize it also, that we did it, but we also know it that that was a something which we should be criticizing it and saying it both at the same time. I was more keen in knowing overall mutation positive patients and the outcome data. You showed the first curve for survival data.
Yes, sir. So that is for the mutant and who has received the TKI. So they did better.
Okay.
Whereas in case of the
Go ahead. So what I wanted here, someone to come up and to show that, talk about mutation positive, you're given TKI, they do better. Good.
they do better. Yes, sir.
But it was primarily driven by EGFR mutation positive patients. So that should be the criticism for it. Because that time we didn't have a ALK inhibitor also, and we were hardly using it. So primarily it was driven by the data for mutation positive patient on TKI doing better is mainly driven by the EGFR mutation positive patient. So that should be the criticism for that graph. If it see in a bit of a detail.
Yes.
So, okay, anything? That was all from my side. Anyone else wants to comment? Dr. Vanita, Dr. Akhil, Dr. Amit, anyone else?
Ravi, excellent discussion. I only wanted to emphasize that it's important for us to know the frequency of mutations in our population. So if you can go back to that pie chart, for the results, and I want all of you all to study this pie chart. So this is the question that actually prompted us to discuss this article again today. So last time we discussed HER2 and trastuzumab deruxtecan in lung cancer, and I asked all of you, what is the frequency of HER2 mutations in our population? We know this, but I'm not sure that any of you all answered it correctly. So it's less than 1%. So it's important for you all to study this, because this is the actual incidence of mutations in our population. These are our own patients, own samples, right? So EGFR 28%, KRAS 13%, FGFR 5.5%, ALK about 4%. So study this. This is important to know. I think otherwise you have covered everything very nicely. So nothing else from my side. Over to you, Akhil. Anything? Akhil, not able to hear you well.
Yeah, ma'am.
Go ahead.
So, ma'am, definitely, this is really important for us. Actually, understanding these mutations and different percentages in our population is important, as highlighted by you also last time. And we had a very detailed discussion on, because the mutations which seem to be rare to us are really important for our patients. So that we have understood with time. And even 0.5% anti-RK mutation is now in the limelight, because this 0.5% can change lives of a significant number of our patients. So that should be kept in the mind, and we should not be disheartened that it is only 0.5% or 0.7%. That is very important to be understood. And these all 0.5% will add up to 5% or 10% as more mutations will be able to identify. So this is important to be understood.
Any other comment by anyone? Dr. Amit is there. Amit, any comment?
Yeah. So the only thing is that, is there any data or any trial going on for this FGFR3 in other than the bladder and the gallbladder? Is there any in lung or like
Squamous cell,
blanket
yes.
study?
Yes, squamous cell is going on. Unfortunately, in squamous cell, that fusion is not so common. So that's a challenge. In expression is fairly common. For expression, yes, there are studies going on. Unfortunately, looks like that FGFR inhibitor, they don't work so well everywhere. The meaning for FGFR kinase domain mutations, the fusions and the expression looks like they have a different meanings. So yes, trial is going on. I agree with you. but
And
doesn't look
what
so.
about the
Mhm.
Pazopanib in the lung? Have anyone looked into that? That is an area which we have a drug which is cheaply available. So have anybody tried to look into that, the role of, because then I think the whole purpose of that paper will be, so if we can get a target which is targetable with a drug which is available with us. So are
I
we
totally
looking into
agree.
that?
This is the place. This is the place we have failed from the clinician side. The lab side gave us information, but yes, we have failed from clinic side. That answer should have gone from the clinic side, and I agree with you. You know, we should have looked into this more.
Sorry,
So-
the only other last comment I wanted to make is it is important. I think this is the basis for us to say that all patients with lung cancer must undergo biomarker testing. So from the pie chart in Caucasians as well as in Indians, 60% plus patients will have some sort of a mutation. Now, in our pie chart, not everything is actionable, but certainly as newer and newer drugs are being found, there are many more actionable mutations. So every patient has to have biomarker testing, and people should not go without biomarker testing. I think that's also important to realize. So 6 out of 10 patients will have some sort of a targetable mutation.
So if there's no more comments, then one more information for the residents, and this project was done. At the same time, there was a lung cancer mutation consortium project which was going on. They did in 1,000 sample. We also started with 1,000. We did initially 5. This is 400 odd. 400 odd got published. Another one in squamous cell carcinoma separately later on. Someone can want to check. They can check on OncoTarget as a journal. And best part was we could do this study, this part of the publication, in just 17 lakh rupees, which we got from Telefox, highlighting that there are capacities in our country where we can do many things with a very reasonable cost. So just to letting residents know that not always you require a whole lot of money to do a whole lot of answers to give. Mr. Ji, please go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to know that it is very exciting that this ratio of pie chart is just stable or changing over past years. Like
Oh, very
10 years, 5 years, and now it is changing, or it is more or less stable?
It will change, Mr. Ji. Oh, good. It's such an important question. I don't know why no one asked. So what happens is this was a part of a limitation of this study, that someone should ask the question, was CMET as a part of it? If the CMET was not part of it, it is not seen here. Was NTRK part of it? If NTRK was not part of it, because in NGS, if NTRK is less than 1% in your population, and if you do NGS of either rain dance or in 100 patients or 50 patients, you will miss it, because it is only happening less than 1%. When you do in hundreds, 500 or 1,000 patients, then you pick up. So it is absolutely fair to criticize this pie chart. I know that I thought it will come from our residents who are usually critical of us, but not when they're presenting the journal. That BRAF is not seen here. It is there because we see it later. We see NTRK, we see CMET. So totally agree upon. This pie chart is incomplete, and incomplete has 2 reasons. One is when we did NGS, because of these being so rare, you will miss it. Because if it is think about if a mutation happens in 0.5% and you did whole exome for 50 patients, 100 patients, because whole exome is costly. Nowadays, we are able to do more. Whole exome cost or whole transcriptome cost has come down from few lakhs to now 30,000 rupees, where you can get both of them done. So it is possible, but having said that, this was done in an era when we didn't do it. So we did whatever genes, it was not there, so it is not reflected there. When we do, because we didn't see in NGS, in validation genotyping, we didn't put those genes. Because we didn't put those genes, again, we have not got it. So yes, this pie chart has been expanding, and this is an incomplete pie chart, a bit old pie chart. I totally agree with you. If I have to make this pie chart, this will be maybe 5-7% or 10% more we'll have some mutations of today's known ones than what I'm seeing it here. So in that time, yes, this was a good pie chart, but in today's time, it is a relatively incomplete pie chart. So Mishra ji, absolutely right question. And these are the criticism of those projects done. That doesn't mean it's not valuable, it's very valuable, but these are the limitations. So thank you for the question, Mishra ji. If no more questions, then no. Back to Dr. Akhil and Dr. Vanita. From my side, it is done.
Nothing from my side. Happy Diwali, everyone.